Cloud seeks with all his heart to find release. Ancient God's pact has seized his soul's peace. Fatty brings the watch with care. Yet the return to camp is delayed once more, unfair. Han Cloud was cornered and beaten badly by Team 136. He began to fully activate his Forbidden Ruins Great Windstorm as soon as he raised his hand. The fierce wind gathered in the palm of his hand. If not stopped, it will continue to build up force until completion. Half of Tsongnan will be leveled to the ground. But he just happens to have a strong wind protecting him, making it impossible for conventional attacks to get close to him. At this moment, Shun Azure Bamboo, who is among the trio that rushed here with Yuan Gang and Bailey Fatty, suddenly stopped. He inexplicably snapped his fingers towards the no-restriction airspace in front of him. With a crisp snap of his fingers, the vortex formed by the Han Cloud dissipated into nothingness without a trace. The members of Team 136 were all dumbfounded. On the contrary, Han Cloud showed a relieved smile and even praised, "Well done." Lin Seven-Night seemed to have a feeling and looked towards the side of no-restriction airspace. The no-restriction airspace there suddenly had a gap. Yuan Gang opened the barrier and let Fatty and others in. Fatty even asked, "Swagger dude, why did you snap your fingers?" Shun Azure Bamboo hesitated a bit. "I don't know, maybe it's instinct." Lin Seven-Night looked at the few people walking towards him and understood roughly in his heart that Han Cloud's vortex was ultimately just extremely compressed air. However, Shun Azure Bamboo's Forbidden Ruins can manipulate the air. He only needs to create a vacuum around the vortex, and the vortex will naturally cease to exist. This is simply a perfect countermeasure in terms of specialization. Looking at the Han Cloud at this moment slowly descending, with a touch of loneliness and relief in the expression, saying, "Come." Yuan Gang's directly leaping towards Han Cloud. He is delivering a full force blow to Han Cloud. He strikes directly, causing Han Cloud to fall swiftly to the ground, raising a huge cloud of smoke. Han Cloud lay motionless in the giant pit that had been smashed open, but Yuan Gang had no intention of letting him off so easily. He launched a fierce attack against Han Cloud like a raging storm. The ground trembled continuously from his strikes. Chan Wilderness saw that the overall situation was settled, so he withdrew his Forbidden Ruins the Nether Hall, which gradually dissipated. Yuan Gang grabbed Han Cloud by the neck and lifted him up, saying in a deep voice, "You were the former captain of the Gusu City Night Watcher Squad and are now the believer, the 13th seat, Han Cloud. You have fallen into my hands for the rest of your life. Go to the fasting hall to repent." Han Cloud looked up at him, his eyes full of pain and supplication. Suddenly a straight knife pierced through Han Cloud's heart, bursting out a large amount of fresh blood. Yuan Gang was shocked and shouted, "Captain Chan, what are you trying to do?" Captain Chan Wilderness pulled out a long knife expressionlessly, "To kill." Yuan Gang looked at Han Cloud, whose breath was rapidly weakening, and growled, "He is no longer a threat. His fate will be decided by the Court of Judgment at the Fasting Hall. Why do you have the right to kill him?" Chan Wilderness glanced at him and said, "Anyone who wants to kill my team members must die. And for him this is also a kind of release." At this moment Han Cloud's face, released by Yuan Gang, carries a gentle smile. Suddenly Han Cloud whispered something. Chan Wilderness quickly bent down. Han Cloud said intermittently, "Be careful, Murmur will definitely come back and kill that young man." After saying this, Han Cloud completely lost vitality. Yuan Gang looked at Chan Wilderness, who stood up with a displeased expression, and questioned, "Captain Chan, no matter what, this matter is not in line with the rules." Chan Wilderness didn't even look up and replied, "If you think I'm acting improperly, then go complain to Xiao Pinch." After saying that, he turned around and coldly remarked, "In Songnan I Chan Wilderness make the rules." Then he walked towards the rest of the members of Squad 136. Looking at the departing Chan Wilderness, Yuan Gang's expression turned helpless as he muttered, "This person's temper is still so strong." Red Tassel looked at the approaching Chan Wilderness and asked softly, "Captain, what's the story with Han Cloud?" Chan Wilderness sighed, "Just a poor soul controlled by the ancient god's cult." Red Tassel scratched his head. "But he seems really determined to kill Seven-Night. Can the ancient god's cult really control people so completely?" Wu Southern Xiang nodded. "Once the pact with the ancient god's cult is signed, it binds to the soul, starting to take effect from the very core of the mind. In other words, even if they are dissatisfied with the command, they cannot refuse or obstruct the execution of the command in any way." Little South's expression changed slightly, as if remembering something, sighed and said, "Wouldn't that be the same as being a puppet?" Chan Wilderness nodded slightly. Yes, but some people are willing to be puppets and enjoy it, while others are in unbearable pain. Wu Southernxiang shrugged. Alright, it's the Chinese New Year. Let's not think about these things anymore. In any case, this battle is finally over. He then hugged Lin Seven-Night and said, Seven-Night, let's invite your friends over for dinner at our place tomorrow. Red Tassel also agreed. Yes, the next time we see you it will be half a year from now. Chan Wilderness smiled and said, Southernxiang is right. Before, both of you were targets of the ancient god's cult, so it wasn't convenient for you to gather together. Now that things have calmed down as the host of Tsongnan, it is only right for you to invite them over for a meal. Red Tassel volunteered and said, Come to my house. My house is quite spacious. Lin Seven-Night looked at everyone being so enthusiastic and smiled. Okay, I'll ask them, he said. Not long after, Lin Seven-Night stood at the front door of Red Tassel's mansion with Fatty and another person. Fatty said somewhat surprised, Wow, Seven-Night, the accommodation conditions here are pretty good. Lin Seven-Night shook his head and replied, This is a friend's house. I am just staying temporarily. On the other side, Chow Abyss sniffed and said, I smell the aroma of meat. Shin Azure Bamboo looked puzzled. Aren't you a monk? Chow Abyss replied solemnly. No, I just have Buddha in my heart. Shin Azure Bamboo shrugged. Didn't you say you were inviting friends over for dinner? Why did you also invite me? Then he saw Lin Seven-Night, Fatty and Chow Abyss staring at him as if he were an idiot. Fatty helplessly patted Shin Azure Bamboo. Can't you be a bit more modest? Calling you here obviously means, we think you've been doing a great job as a handyman these days. Shin Azure Bamboo roared. Damn it, Fatty, who are you with? The four playful individuals became obedient the moment they entered the room, except for Biley Fatty, who remained very lively. He is about to start giving out leaflets again. He only saw him coming to the side of Captain Chan Wilderness. Captain Chan, your demeanor is indeed extraordinary. Only this Rolex can barely match your style. Please accept it. Then he came to the side of Wu Southernxiang. Brother Southernxiang, I didn't bring anything good out this time. This is a specialty green ghost water from my home. Please do accept it. Later, he came to the side of Red Tassel. Sister Red Tassel, you are so beautiful. It's just that your wrist looks a bit empty. This Van Cleef and Arpels bracelet suits your temperament. When Inkwisher looked at the scene uncertainly and asked, Is Seven-Night the silly son of the landlord? I figured it out. This person is not bad, just a little slow-witted. On the other hand, Chow Abyss is holding a big bowl of food and chatting away. In the time it takes for a few people to chat, he has already polished off 2 big bowls. In the end, everyone was full and satisfied, so they cleaned up the dining table together. Before long, the training camp's bus had already arrived outside the gate. Lin Seven-Night and several others picked up their already prepared luggage and headed towards the shuttle bus. Fatty looked at the members of Team 136, seeing them off at the door, and said with a smile to Lin Seven-Night, Seven-Night, the atmosphere in your team is great. I wish I could join you guys in the future. Chow Abyss nodded and said, That's right, especially the captain. She cooks really delicious meals. Lin Seven-Night smiled and said, There will be opportunities. Let's go, we should return to the training camp. Early in the morning, what woke up Lin Seven-Night was not the alarm clock, but Biley Fatty's loud snoring. The dream talk that bubbled out with him was, I want to eat fried chicken, and something about this monkey. He got out of bed, picked up a slipper and threw it at Fatty's head. Fatty jumped up and exclaimed, Enemy attack? Has the enemy attacked? Lin Seven-Night said speechlessly, There is no enemy attack. Let's gather immediately. You wouldn't want to be late on the first day of gathering, would you? Not long after, everyone gathered in the square. Yuan Gang had several badges on his chest. He stood on the platform and proclaimed loudly, The only reason I have gathered you all here today is to honor 2 among you. Immediately, whispers broke out below. After all, it was unprecedented to receive honors before even leaving the training camp. Fatty looked at the instructors on the platform, furrowed his brows, counted twice, and asked quietly, Seven-Night, have you noticed that it seems like a few instructors are missing? Lin Seven-Night noticed this from the beginning and said, 3 are missing. They must be spies planted by the ancient god's cult. They probably won't have a good ending. Fatty nodded. It makes sense about the spies. No wonder when we just left the camp, those missiles came at us so conveniently. Yuan Gang on the stage gestured with his own badge while introducing the merits of the Night Watcher to everyone. He started from the easy to the difficult tasks, which are Star Flame, Star Radiance, Celestial Lights, and Starry Sea. Star Flame is the easiest one to achieve. By completing the important task of protecting the safety of the people, you can earn it. The difficulty of Star Radiance is higher. Only by killing critical threats, mysterious beings that quell major disasters, can it be obtained. As for this Celestial Lights medal, you need to kill the mysterious beings of infinite level that are capable of causing social unrest in order to obtain it. The Celestial Lights badge is extremely rare. In the entire Night Watcher organization, less than 1% of people can obtain it. As for the Starry Sea badge, it is the highest honor of the Night Watcher. The number of people in the entire Great Xia who possess it does not exceed 10. Even the senior members of the Night Watcher cannot provide specific criteria on how to obtain it. At this moment, someone suddenly raised their hand and said, "Report." Yuan Gang nodded and said, "Go ahead." The person continued to ask, "If the instructor cannot provide a standard, how can we determine who is eligible to receive this medal?" Yuan Gang thought for a moment and replied, "When everyone thinks you deserve it, they will naturally award it to you. If forced to choose a standard, the only person who has won the Starry Sea medal in the past 5 years is Mass Squad's leader, King Face. 5 years ago, Yamada no Orochi from Divine Sequence 40 landed in the East China Sea. King Face travels through time at the cost of its own lifespan. He returned to 1 hour before the landing of Yamada no Orochi, and ordered the evacuation of the people in the surrounding coastal areas. He also led the Mass Squad to fight Yamada no Orochi desperately for half an hour, holding on until a human celestial being descended. That time they saved tens of millions of people. He looked at the new recruits below the stage and continued, "If any of you can make a contribution greater than his in the future, you can naturally apply for the Starry Sea medal." Lin Seven-Night also recalled at this time that there were indeed reports 5 years ago about a massive tsunami in the East China Sea. "I didn't expect the truth behind it to be like this." Yuan Gang saw that no one had any more questions and continued saying, "Next, I will announce the first person to receive the medal, Lin Seven-Night, who acted decisively in the missile attack incident, saving more than 50 new recruits and preserving the future fire for Night Watcher. After that, he fought side by side with Team 136, killing the Believer the 13th seat Han Cloud. Here, I present the Celestial Lights medal." Upon hearing this, all the new recruits couldn't help but look at Lin Seven-Night with envy. This was the second most difficult Celestial Lights badge to obtain. As for jealousy, that was something none of them felt. After all, their lives were saved by him. Replying to 13, one of the instructors on the platform also looked enviously and murmured quietly, "Even General Instructor Yuan only has 3 Celestial Lights badges. This new recruit hasn't even left the training camp and already got one." Instructor Hong beside him chuckled. Just by shielding the missile fragments for all the new recruits on the bus, Lin Seven-Night already deserves this badge. In this training camp, they are all the future Night Watchers, the backbone of those who will safeguard the country. If anything happens to them, there will be a gap in the Night Watchers, weakening the defense forces nationwide. And in recent years, the appearance of mysteries has been getting stronger. If the power of the Night Watchers weakens, it will be a major crisis sweeping the entire region. So Lin Seven-Night's action to protect the new recruits this time is crucial. He did indeed quell major events that could have caused social unrest. Yuan Gang heard the discussions of several people and whispered, "Old Hong, you are right, but there is actually a deeper meaning to this. It involves the attitude of the higher-ups." Instructor Hong was taken aback when he heard this. "Higher-ups?" Yuan Gang nodded slightly and said, "A heavily injured snake lady participating in the killing of Han Cloud, as explained by Lin Seven-Night, shows that he has already rejected the ancient gods cult and firmly stands on our side. The firm stance of the dual gods agent in the eyes of the higher-ups means that not rewarding him any further would be unacceptable." Yuan Gang, watching Lin Seven-Night award the medal, continued loudly, "Another individual, Shun Azure Bamboo, eliminated the catastrophic vortex of the typhoon disaster to protect Songnan City from calamity. Award him the Star Radiance badge." Shun Azure Bamboo heard this, looking perplexed with a row of question marks popping up over his head. What's going on? Eliminate the vortex? Who is it referring to? Me? Fatty was also extremely shocked. Oh my! When did Swagger Dude start protecting Songnan? Lin Seven-Night had already guessed roughly and chuckled. Was it when he snapped his fingers? Shun Azure Bamboo, who went on stage to receive the medal, was not as calm as Lin Seven-Night. He was even excited, with his face flushed red. After the medal ceremony ended, Yuan Gang asked everyone to disperse. On the way, Shun Azure Bamboo's younger brother asked, "Brother Shun, didn't you go to make money? Why did you come back with a medal?" But Brother Shen, you are really amazing, Brother Shen. Shen Azure Bamboo tilted his head back and proudly said, "Look at you all acting like you've never seen the world. It's just a star radiance, isn't it? In the future, this master will obtain something even more amazing than this." Fatty saw Shen Azure Bamboo acting this way and sneered, "Swagger dude, here we go again. No way, I have to bring him down a notch." Then he shouted at Shen Azure Bamboo, "Seven-Night is the best. Seven-Night is the coolest. Seven-Night is awesome." Shen Azure Bamboo was speechless and almost retorted, but Lin Seven-Night interjected, "Are you a child?" He then walked away, leading the group towards the canteen to eat. Azure Bamboo dreams sweetly in class. Seven-Night's questions leave the instructor aghast. The wristband device keeps charging with care. Fatty nimbly plants his leg in the air. In the training camp classroom, the instructor, Gu, is teaching theoretical knowledge. He went to Shen Azure Bamboo, who was sleeping soundly, and knocked on the table. "Shen Azure Bamboo, you tell me, what is the essence of mental power?" Shen Azure Bamboo is also a man, standing up and saying, "I can't do it." Instructor Gu nodded. "Very good. Go outside and run 10 laps around the track." Shen Azure Bamboo's eyes lit up and he said, "Okay," before running out. Instructor Gu sighed helplessly and turned to Lin Seven-Night. "Lin Seven-Night, you answer." Lin Seven-Night stood up and answered fluently. "The essence of mental power is a supernatural force generated by conscious activity under specific circumstances." Instructor Gu nodded in approval. "Well said. I hope everyone understands that theoretical knowledge is as important as practical combat in the process of eliminating mysteries. Only through continuous learning and exploration can we understand the true nature of the world." Lin Seven-Night suddenly raised his hand and asked, "Instructor, I have a question. Do you think the world we are in is real?" When this question came up, Instructor Gu was dumbfounded. Where did that come from? Then Lin Seven-Night started firing off a bunch of questions like a spilled bag of beans. For fish living in the deep sea, for two-dimensional beings, how can we be sure that our current world is real? What is true reality? What is the real world? What lies beyond this universe? From the perspective of beings in higher dimensions, what are we? Is it possible that we were created by beings in higher dimensions? Instructor Gu muttered, "It shouldn't be, right?" Lin Seven-Night heard this and became excited. "Why?" "Instructor, do you have any evidence to refute my theory and prove the reality of this world?" Instructor Gu thought to himself, "People are all silly now. Who am I? Where am I? Why am I asking him questions?" However, he gritted his teeth and slammed the table, saying, "Lin Seven-Night, your question is very good, but I cannot give an answer right now. However, rest assured that I will not avoid this question. Give me time to study it, and I will definitely give you an answer in the end." After that, he let the students study on their own. He left the classroom and walked towards the office. Biley Fatty and Lin Seven-Night gave a thumbs up to each other. Impressive. Seven-Night can ask questions that even such instructors cannot answer. Lin Seven-Night sighed and murmured, "Indeed, Merlin's illness is not so easily solved." Instructor Han and Instructor Hong happened to see Instructor Gu approaching as they were on their way to the office. He then smiled and greeted Instructor Gu. But Instructor Gu walked straight ahead as if he hadn't seen the two of them. This scene puzzled Instructor Han. What does it mean? Why is he ignoring us? Instructor Hong shrugged. I don't know. It's like he's been possessed. In the second lesson, all the new recruits gathered on the playground. Instructor Hong introduced to them. In the process of using the Forbidden Ruins, the important evaluation criteria can be divided into 3 categories. The first category is power and lethality, which mainly depends on the Forbidden Ruins itself, an established factor that cannot be influenced by humans. The second category is whether people and the Forbidden Ruins are compatible, and whether they can unleash its maximum power. This can only be achieved through your own long-term coordination and adaptation with the Forbidden Ruins. Others cannot help you. As for the third category, it is the duration and coverage of the Forbidden Ruins. In other words, it is the precise control of mental power, and this is the goal of our training. With that said, he pointed to the device in the box beside him. This is called ACE, take it with you. It will continuously output a mental current for 24 hours. Then he smirked maliciously. The mental current won't cause harm, but it will stimulate your muscles to make you perform some incredible movements. Your task is to use mental power continuously for 24 hours to counteract this mental current. You must maintain a balance between mental power and the current. If mental power is insufficient, the current will stimulate your body. But if mental power is too strong, ACE will also react by allowing a larger current to pass through your body. The ACE current changes irregularly. You must constantly output different amounts of mental power to cope. Fatty picked up the device and played with it. Couldn't help but comment. This watch is too ugly, it's far behind compared to Rolex. Chow Abyss also put on the bracelet without any care and felt a tremor in his body. Then he did a backflip and actually flipped out 3 to 4 meters. Lin Seven-Night and Fatty looked at him in amazement. Chow Abyss's face twitched. Don't just look at me, you guys will have to take turns too. Fatty chuckled. Blame not the road for being bumpy if one is not up to it. With my physique, forget about backflips, even rolling on the ground would be a struggle for ages, how is it possible? In the meantime, Fatty placed the bracelet on his wrist. The next moment, Fatty seemed to have turned into the most agile being in the world, tumbling and jumping around like a chicken and a dog. He somersaulted more than a dozen times in an instant. While darting around, he cried out with a sobbing voice, Seven-Night, help me! And at this moment, Lin Seven-Night didn't know what to say for a moment. All the students on the playground in front of him turned into flying monkeys, jumping around everywhere. Some even started to do ballet. Instructor Hong nodded in satisfaction. Don't mention it. There are definitely more people doing somersaults this year compared to previous years, which is great. Fatty waits in vain for his meal to arrive. Seven-Night rejoices as 2 million arrive. In blue rain just Wu Southern Xiang stands tall. Shiva, the calamity bringer, mourns the world's fall. Watching the new soldiers jumping around the playground caused by the hula hoops in front of them, Lin Seven-Night hesitantly put on the hula hoop as well. Then he did a backflip. However, his landing was quite stable. Lin Seven-Night nodded to himself. This is more difficult than I imagined. Instructor Hong looked at the new recruits on the field with messy enthusiasm, unable to suppress his smile. All right, today's class ends here. Let's all go eat. Oh, by the way, don't forget, whether you're eating, sleeping, or doing anything else, always wear it. At this moment, the new recruits on the playground suddenly felt like the sky was falling. Is this seeking death? Chow Abyss moved sideways like a crab to Lin Seven-Night's side and looked him up and down, couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Seven-Night, are you adapting so quickly? Come on, let's go to the cafeteria. Lin Seven-Night nodded. Yes, I can do that. Then he pointed to Biley Fatty, who was still tumbling around and shouting for Seven-Night to save him. What do we do with this guy? Chow Abyss was also speechless. If all else fails, just tie him up and take him away. Before long, the new recruits were either walking or crawling to the cafeteria. Once they entered the cafeteria, they encountered some difficulties. Their hands seemed disobedient and they couldn't even eat properly. Of course, there were a few exceptionally talented individuals who were already adept at moving freely. Lin Seven-Night and Chow Abyss took a few bites and noticed that Fatty was holding his chopsticks but not eating. Unable to help themselves, they asked, Why aren't you eating? Aren't you hungry? Fatty helplessly replied, I am hungry, but I'm afraid I can't control myself. After thinking for a moment, Lin Seven-Night picked up a piece of meat. He brought it in front of Fatty and said, Here, try this piece. Fatty's face really showed how much effort he put into eating. He barely managed to pick up the piece of meat in Seven-Night's hand. Fatty was delighted he finally did it. But as soon as his mind relaxed, the whole person was stimulated by an electric shock, walked 2 laps on the spot, and then collapsed on the ground. Chow Abyss raised an eyebrow and said, Is it that difficult? I think it's quite manageable. Oh, by the way, the meat today is really delicious. Fatty was both angry and annoyed. Tears even flowed out. Seven-Night, help me, I'm almost starving to death. What else can Lin Seven-Night do? He can't just watch Fatty turn into a skinny monkey, can he? He could only let out a long sigh as he fed Fatty with a bowl and chopsticks. Fatty thanked him while eating. Seven-Night is also good to me. Chow Abyss glanced around and smiled. It seems that it's not just our table doing this. It turns out that Shin Azure Bamboo and his 2 companions are controlling things really well. His 2 followers can't even eat their food. The 2 can only rely on Shin Azure Bamboo to feed them. Lin Seven-Night looked Shin Azure Bamboo in the eye. Chi-Chi sighed. When will this day come to an end? During the lunch break, Lin Seven-Night arrived at Chief Instructor Yuan Gang's office and looked at the box on the desk. Yuan Gang was startled when he saw it. Forbidden item? Lin Seven-Night shook his head. This is a trophy from my battle with the believer. Seems to have a forbidden ruin named Blood Boils. Yuan Gang picked up the pendant and examined it. Sequence 209's Blood Boils. Do you want to turn this thing in? Lin Seven-Night thought for a moment. What will I get if I turn it in? Yuan Gang set down the pendant. Blood Boils is not considered high risk, but it can be quite useful in specific situations. If you turn it in, you can exchange it for some merits or 2 million in cash. It depends on what you want specifically. Lin Seven-Night really didn't expect this thing to be so valuable. After some thought he said, "Then let's go with 2 million. However, I also want to know some information." Yuan Gang frowned. "What information?" Lin Seven-Night slowly said, "I want to know about Chun Wilderness and Wu Southernxiang. What exactly happened to them?" Yuan Gang sighed. "You really are. Forget it. The things about those two are not much of a secret. Even the more experienced night watchers know some. There's no harm in telling you. Do you know about the special team Blue Rain?" Lin Seven-Night was stunned and shook his head. "I don't know." Yuan Gang nodded and continued, 5 years ago, during the Great Disaster when Yamada no Orochi invaded the Eastern Sea, after the masked squad battled with Yamada no Orochi, a human reached the scene in the nick of time, accompanied by a special team which was Blue Rain. Wu Southernxiang is a member of Blue Rain. Lin Seven-Night was stunned when he heard this. He used to be a member of the Special Forces team? Yuan Gang stood up, looked out the window and recalled, Blue Rain was very strong, and at that time the masked team had just been formed for a short time. Their combat power was far inferior to that of Blue Rain. So when Blue Rain arrived, they took over the battle against Yamada no Orochi. The human ceiling and the entire Blue Rain team worked together and finally critically wounded Yamada no Orochi, forcing it back into the mist. Lin Seven-Night couldn't help but ask, "Entering the mist? Isn't the mist deadly?" Yuan Gang waved his hand and said, "Some forbidden items can temporarily give people the ability to move around in the mist. When you reach that level, you will naturally understand. The original order from the higher-ups was to attempt to hunt down Yamada no Orochi and retreat immediately if unsuccessful. The forbidden item on Blue Rain ensured that their entire team could move around in the mist for 4 hours. At that time, everyone thought they would come back, but 24 hours later, they were completely out of contact. It wasn't until about 80 hours later that Wu Southernxiang appeared alone on a leather raft from the mist. When he was found, he was already in a coma. He slept for a whole day before waking up. Blue Rain team. The entire team was wiped out. According to him, they were chasing after Yamada no Orochi all the way but couldn't catch up. They were originally planning to return, but it seems they lost their way in the mist and entered a strange world. Lin Seven-Night was slightly surprised. What kind of strange world? Yuan Gang took a deep breath. They suspect that place is Celestial Heights. And the reason why Blue Rain team was destroyed is because they encountered a deity resembling Susanoo in Celestial Heights. After fighting with Yamada no Orochi and running in the mist for most of the day, at this point, all members of Blue Rain were exhausted and had no energy left to fight Susanoo. In the end, except for Wu Southernxiang, all members of the Blue Rain team died in battle. After Wu Southernxiang was killed 3 times consecutively in battle due to the special properties of the Forbidden Ruins, it took an extra hour for him to fully respawn. When he woke up, he found that all that was left around him were the bodies of his comrades. Also, in that battle, his hands were wounded by Susanoo's Kusanagi sword, and from then on, he could no longer hold a sword. Even if he respawned, the injury could not be erased. Later, as he escaped from Celestial Heights, he was repeatedly attacked and died 4 more times before returning alive to the territory of Great Xia. The surviving members of Blue Rain team were already broken both physically and psychologically. In the end, the higher-ups disbanded the name of Blue Rain, one of Great Xia's 5 special teams, reducing them to 4 teams. What happened later, how Wu Southernxiang came, and Song Nan becoming the deputy team leader of Team 136, I do not know. Upon hearing this, Lin Seven-Night couldn't help but sigh deeply. I never expected he had such a past. Yuan Gang nodded and continued. As for Chun Wilderness, the matter regarding him is even more complicated. What exactly happened back then? I don't know much about it either. 12 years ago, Chun Wilderness had just walked out of the training camp and was summoned to join the Night Watcher team in Shangjing City, along with another genius. The forbidden ruins possessed by the 2 of them were extremely rare and complementary. Chun Wilderness's forbidden ruins is the Black Impermanence of 37, while the other person is the current captain of the Shangjing City team, Xiao Pinge, whose forbidden ruins is the White Impermanence of Yenri. Due to the forbidden ruins, the 2 of them were also known as the Black and White Impermanences of Shangjing City by us at that time. Lin Seven-Night suddenly spoke up. I've always been curious who came up with the name Forbidden Ruins. Is it related to our Great Xia myth of the Black and White Impermanences? Yuan Gang shook his head. The origins of these 2 forbidden ruins are too ancient and involve the highest level of secrecy. With my current authorization, I am unable to find out. I only know that, later one day, Chun Wilderness seemed to have received a special order. Since then he disappeared from Shangjing City, and even Xiao Pinge couldn't find him. As a result, Xiao Pinge even found the commander-in-chief, but the commander-in-chief just replied with a sentence related to confidentiality and turned him away. At that time, everyone was busy dealing with the impending apocalypse. After a long time, Xiao Pinge finally freed up to investigate the whereabouts of Chun Wilderness, only to find out that he had actually come to Tsongnan City to become a captain. Later, I heard Xiao Pinge mention that he had come to Tsongnan several times to persuade Chun Wilderness to return, but he was refused each time. In the end, Xiao Pinge had to give up completely, return to Shangjing City, and gradually became the leader he is today. Lin Seven-Night suddenly remembered something and asked, "What is the great calamity you mentioned earlier?" Yuan Gang thought for a moment, feeling it was fine to speak about it, and said, "It is a forbidden item, the most terrifying one in history. Its name is Shiva's Wrath." Upon hearing this name, Lin Seven-Night was taken aback. Shiva? I remember he is one of the 3 major gods in Indian mythology, the god of destruction. Yuan Gang nodded. That's right. Shiva's Wrath is an ancient scroll with the apocalyptic power of sequence 008. Deity ruins. By writing a name on Shiva's Wrath, the concept it points to will be destroyed directly. For example, writing the words Great Xia on it. Upon hearing this, Lin Seven-Night was suddenly shocked. Could it be that? Yuan Gang nodded with a dark expression. Yes, it will directly obliterate the entire Great Xia from the conceptual level, that is, destroy the nation. Upon hearing this, Lin Seven-Night couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. How could such an outrageous forbidden item exist? Yuan Gang explained, however, the amount of mental power required to activate this forbidden item is extremely huge. Even if you just write a person's name on it to obliterate an ordinary person, it would directly deplete the strength of a stage stronger, and not to mention reaching the outrageous level of annihilating a country. Lin Seven-Night, upon hearing this, puzzled. If that's the case, its threat seems not that significant. Why is it called the cataclysm of world's destruction then? Yuan Gang sighed. Just because humans can't do it doesn't mean that gods can't. If divine power is infused into this forbidden item, although it may not reach the point of annihilating a country, destroying a city would be a piece of cake. In the past, Shiva's wrath manifested on the outskirts of Great Xia, triggering the coveting of the evil deity in the mist. In order to seize it, the deity came to invade. For this reason, 5 human powerhouses gathered together to battle against the trickster god Loki from the Norse mythology, and the Earth Mother Gaia from Greek mythology. Lin Seven-Night felt excitement surging in his heart. What happened next? Yuan Gang shrugged his shoulders, and then? Well, I don't know what happened next. But since then, the higher-ups have not mentioned Shiva's wrath again. I am just the deputy team leader of the Shangjing squad, not a particularly high-ranking figure. I don't have access to such top-secret information. Speaking of this, Yuan Gang patted the box. Okay, I have told you everything about the 2 individuals, along with the matter of Shiva's wrath. Do you have any other questions? Lin Seven-Night thought for a moment and smiled, saying, No, thank you, Drill Master Yuan. Yuan Gang nodded and said, Alright, about 2 million will be transferred to your card in a couple of days. The forbidden item will also be handed over then. Night falls. Thousands of lights in homes. Some people have already gone to rest early, while others can no longer fall asleep. In a bedroom, a figure sits beneath a bookshelf, constantly searching through it. Mutters without stopping. No, not here, not here. It was only when he got closer that one could see clearly. This person is Instructor Gu, who at this moment has sunken eye sockets. He appears lost, continuously flipping through the book in his hands. His eyelids were fighting fiercely. He decided to take a nap first before making any decisions. But just as he got into bed, he heard the alarm clock ringing for early rising. However, he couldn't fall asleep no matter what. He now has only one thought in his mind. Is it right or not? Is the world really like this? The instructor was sent to the hospital inexplicably crazy. Finally cured, he can return to his family. But he was bitten by a bug. As soon as he arrived at the camp, he was blocked at the door. Training camp shooting range. 3 gunshots all hitting the bullseye. What is surprising is that this actually comes from Bailey Fatty. I didn't expect him to be so skilled with firearms. Put down the gun. Fatty looked at Chow Abyss next to him in confusion and asked, By the way, I haven't seen Instructor Gu for 2 months. Where did he go? Chow Abyss fired 3 shots in a row, scoring 2 9s and 1 10. His performance is also quite good. He took off his earpiece and shook his head. I don't know. At this moment, Lin Seven-Night also fired 3 shots in a row. As a result, all 3 shots missed the target. Fatty couldn't help but laugh and said, Seven-Night, you really need to practice your marksmanship. Among the over 200 new recruits here, not many can miss the target 3 times in a row. Saying this, he put his arm around Lin Seven-Night's shoulder and said, I say, why don't you just become my disciple, Seven-Night? I'll teach you some of my shooting skills. Lin Seven-Night nodded in agreement and said, all right, then during the close combat training later, you can be my opponent. Upon hearing this, Fatty slowly stepped back and said, sorry, I was out of line. When he came outside to take a rest, Lin Seven-Night took a sip of water and said, the disappearance of Instructor Gu for 2 months is indeed strange. I was hoping he could give me an answer. At this moment, Instructor Hong walked in and waved to Lin Seven-Night, saying, Lin Seven-Night, come over here. After Lin Seven-Night came out, he stood at attention and asked, Instructor Hong, is there something you need from me? Instructor Hong's temple veins throbbed. What did you do? Don't you have any idea in your heart? Lin Seven-Night said in disbelief, me? What did I do? Instructor Hong, seeing that Lin Seven-Night genuinely didn't know, said, what kind of crazy question did you give to Instructor Gu? It drove him crazy, and now he's still receiving treatment at the psychiatric hospital. Lin Seven-Night was also somewhat surprised, asking specifically about his symptoms. Instructor Hong thought for a moment and said, his whole person was completely out of his mind. Recently he was staring at the wall day after day, mumbling something, and then suddenly dancing around saying he wanted to find the real world. However, after 2 months of treatment, his condition has improved, and now he can start to live normally. Upon hearing this, Lin Seven-Night thought, isn't this just a version of Merlin? Wait a minute. Does this mean that Instructor Gu's treatment plan could also be applicable to Merlin? Instructor Hong saw Lin Seven-Night staring blankly without speaking and thought he was feeling guilty. He patted his shoulder and said, I actually came to find you for nothing major. It's just that these days, Instructor Gu will be coming to the training camp to pack up and prepare to go home for recuperation. If you run into him, absolutely do not mention anything about the real world to him. No, if you see him, just walk around him directly. Don't let him see you. Do you understand? Lin Seven-Night smiled so sincerely and brilliantly. Instructor, rest assured. I absolutely understand. When Instructor Hong leaves, Lin Seven-Night turns his head and says to Fatty and Chow Abyss, I entrust you two with an important matter. If you see Instructor Gu in the next couple of days, make sure to inform me promptly. Fatty and the other person were stunned. Why? Lin Seven-Night rubbed his chin and smiled. I want to ask him about something very important. 2 days later, it was a beautiful day with gentle breeze and sunshine. However, a shady figure appeared at the entrance of the training camp. The figure hid behind a tree, occasionally peeking in the direction of the training camp. The gatekeeper instructor got angry, shouting, Who's there? What are you doing? The figure quickly walked out and said, Keep your voice down. It's me. The gatekeeper instructor was about to draw his sword, but when he heard the voice, he paused in surprise. Old Gu? Why are you dressed like this? Instructor Gu covered his head speechlessly and said, I came back to get something, but the doctor advised me not to see anyone directly related to my illness. In short, I'd better not be recognized. The guards instructor obviously didn't understand, so he just said, Oh, I see. Then you should go quickly. The new recruits are having their meal in the cafeteria. Just take a detour. What the 2 men didn't know was that the scene was caught red-handed by the new recruits who were tailing them. They said into the walkie-talkie, Confirmed, it's Instructor Gu. On the other side, the walkie-talkie in Bailey Fatty's pocket rang. After he heard clearly what was said inside, Fatty smiled. He said into the walkie-talkie, Thank you, brothers. I'll treat you both to a Rolex when we get back. When Fatty was about to show off to Lin Seven-Night, he found that Lin Seven-Night had already disappeared. Chow Abyss shrugged and said, When you were talking on the walkie-talkie just now, he had already rushed out. Sure enough, on the way to the instructor's dormitory, Instructor Gu saw Lin Seven-Night, who had come to greet him. Long time no see, Instructor Gu. This sudden greeting almost scared Instructor Gu out of his wits. He thought it had been a long time since we last met. You devil. Nevertheless, he still managed to ask, Is there something you need? Lin Seven-Night scratched his head awkwardly and said, I just wanted to ask what the doctor told you and how he treated you. Instructor Gu secretly breathed a sigh of relief, afraid that Lin Seven-Night would ask more questions about the real world. So he replied, It wasn't a big deal. The doctor just gave me some words of encouragement, prescribed some medication, and advised me to relax, and I got better. Lin Seven-Night persisted and asked, "How were you encouraged? What medication did you take?" Unable to hold back, Instructor Gu blurted out, "It's nothing, are you sick or something?" Lin Seven-Night looked serious and said, "Yes, I am." This statement almost choked Instructor Gu. Before he could ask further, Lin Seven-Night continued, "Actually, I have been pondering over that question as well. I have been sleepless at night, and my mental state has been worsening." Instructor Gu, upon hearing this, found the symptoms to be similar to his own and immediately believed most of it. "So, are you also ill?" Lin Seven-Night let out a long sigh. "That's why I wanted to know how you recovered. Perhaps it could be effective for me too." Instructor Gu looked at him and saw no signs of deceit, sighed and shook his head. Forget it, forget it. You come with me to the office and talk." So Lin Seven-Night followed Instructor Gu with excitement. They walked towards the office together. And in the psychiatric hospital of the gods, Li Flying is really going crazy. He was holding a syringe and following Merlin, who had turned into a starfish. He chased after Merlin Nix, who wanted to catch jellyfish, for more than 20 minutes without catching up. Merlin Nix, who was watching from the side, was very happy to see the hustle and bustle. In the end, Li Flying gritted his teeth, leaped into the air, and the syringe pierced Merlin's buttocks. Merlin immediately let out a soul-stirring cry, then fell to the ground again and could not get up, falling into a deep sleep. Li Flying sat on the ground exhausted, thinking that this was really not a job for humans. Oh wait, he himself wasn't exactly human, so it should be fine. However, what he didn't notice was that at this moment, a figure was approaching him from behind. Flying boldly chased the starfish away, while Merlin healed and peeked, no matter what may come. Summon magic remains deep in the heart. Fatty's slipper has brought him bad luck from the beginning. Recently, Li Flying has been having quite an eventful time. After all, with someone who could turn the floor into a sea of starfish at any time and actively trying to catch jellyfish, no one could possibly have a peaceful time. In the end, it took him a huge amount of effort to finally bring down the starfish Merlin. And at this moment, a figure appeared behind him. It was Lin Seven-Night who had returned here. The moment Li Flying saw him, his nose tingled. He directly hugged Lin Seven-Night's thigh and wailed loudly, "Seven-Night! This job is really unbearable. I have to comfort Nix every day, and compete in a race with that perverted starfish. I'm really having a hard time." Lin Seven-Night smiled and patted his shoulder. "Flying, you have to be strong. After all, you are not human. You are a serpent Yaoguai." Li Flying looked at Lin Seven-Night's smile and sighed helplessly. "So when can you finally send the next caregiver?" Lin Seven-Night smiled awkwardly, saying, "Well, it might take some more time. I am currently at the training camp, and don't have access to other mysterious people." Upon hearing this, Li Flying instantly felt that life had become a bit darker. Lin Seven-Night quickly cleared his throat twice and said, "But it's all right. I may have found a way to treat Merlin. I'll go talk to him. Wait until Merlin wakes up again. He is already in his ward on the big bed." While Lin Seven-Night sat on a chair not far away, looking at Merlin with a smile and said, "Good evening, Your Excellency Merlin." Merlin nodded and said, "Good evening, Dean Lin. It seems like the crisis by your side has been resolved." With that, Merlin got out of bed and walked towards Lin Seven-Night. Lin Seven-Night raised an eyebrow. "Merlin, have you figured it out again? Then you take another look at how my luck will be in the near future?" Merlin sat down in front of him. He said, "The future is hard to predict, but at least in the next few days, your luck is still pretty good." Lin Seven-Night smiled and said, "I hope this luck also includes our chat today, Lord Merlin. This time I want to discuss some things with you. I have some other thoughts about what you said about the real world." Merlin looked surprised. "Please go on, Headmaster." Lin Seven-Night took a deep breath and said solemnly, "I feel that our world is real." Merlin looked puzzled and asked, "Why?" Lin Seven-Night shrugged and said, "Because I feel it's real, so it is real." Merlin couldn't help but frown upon hearing this. "You are idealistic." Lin Seven-Night slowly stood up. "So what if it's idealistic? In this world there are my family, friends, and countless flesh and blood people. Even if this world is fake, aren't their lives, joys, and sorrows important? Whether the world is real or not is already a question of idealism. If you think it's fake, even if it is real, what difference does it make?" When these words came out, Merlin was so shocked that he couldn't say a word and fell into deep shock. Speaking of this, Lin Seven-Night turned around and left, saying as he walked, The truth you pursue is the instinct of a seeker. But I feel that this should not be your whole being. Even if you find the real world, it doesn't mean you belong there. You're pushing yourself too hard, Merlin. After finishing his words, Lin Seven-Night turned away from Merlin and almost burst out laughing, thinking to himself that the doctor-treating instructor Gu indeed has a sharp wit. This isn't something an ordinary person could say. I should have him share his contact information with me. At this moment, Merlin had already fallen into deep thought. The progress of the treatment on his head twitched slightly, reaching 2%. At the same time, the prompt also appeared in front of Lin Seven-Night, reminding him that he could extract abilities. Immediately after, a flash of light flowed. A huge turntable appeared in front of Lin Seven-Night. On top of it are all the various magical abilities that Merlin is proficient in. As the turntable spins rapidly, Lin Seven-Night couldn't help but feel a bit nervous. Finally, the turntable slowly comes to a stop. It stopped at summoning magic proficiency. Lin Seven-Night was slightly startled and slowly raised her hand. He lightly tapped on the turntable. Then a strong light shone from his eyes. Countless theories and knowledge of summoning spells crazily flooded into his mind. These knowledge made Lin Seven-Night's head ache as if it was about to split. Finally, his eyes went black and he passed out. Then Lin Seven-Night from the real world suddenly woke up from consciousness. Just now, the headache sensation is still vivid in Lin Seven-Night's mind, making him gasp for breath involuntarily. He turned his head and looked at Bily Fatty, who was sound asleep and snoring loudly, then suddenly laughed. Since you already know some magic, why not try it now? According to the knowledge that entered his mind, summoning magic is divided into 3 categories. First is dimensional summoning magic. By sacrificing valuable offerings, the soul travels to another plane, signing a contract with certain creatures. After returning to reality, proceed with summoning using the magic circle. Next is to designate the summoning spell. It means contacting a certain entity in the real world. After obtaining their consent, he can then summon them to another location, such as humans and objects. While the last one is a random summon, as the name suggests. No one knows what will be summoned, and the medium for casting is also very simple. It is possible to summon an ice dragon with just a leaf. It is also possible to summon an old mother hen with a magical artifact. Lin Seven-Night squatted on the ground, picked up his own slipper and examined it. The requirements for dimensional summoning and specified summoning are too high. Now I can only try random summoning. But I can't bear to part with my own slipper. Suddenly, Lin Seven-Night tilted his head. He looked at Fatty's pair of pink cat ear slippers. He hadn't noticed them before, but today he found them more and more appealing. They were like a sacrifice chosen by the heavens. Thinking about it, Lin Seven-Night directly picked up Fatty's pink slipper, saying, "I'll use this." The slipper transformed into bugs that swirled around. Fatty woke up, his body bruised and bound. Graduation scores are ranked in order, with new recruits staring wide-eyed at the scene this time. Lin Seven-Night just learned summoning spells from Merlin. He must be eager to give it a try. But he will definitely be reluctant to use his own slippers as sacrifices. Instead, he set his sights on Bily Fatty's pink cat ear slippers. Isn't this just the perfect offering? The offering is here, let's get to work. Lin Seven-Night immediately set up a magic circle and put Fatty's slippers into it. As Lin Seven-Night begins to chant, a strong light also bursts out from the magic circle. Those slippers were slowly lifted up and eventually disappeared completely. He watched as the sacrifice was successful.